That's why God has given us our rational faculties, our intelligence, and set us and created that demarcation between animals and as human beings. Is the primary purpose is to know, to love, and to worship God. And by worshiping God and listening to the messengers of God throughout time and in the future, they give us the tools, in one sense, to make this world a better place. But if we choose to ignore and to come up with our own devices and machinations and so on, then we create a world that isn't good for us, a world that's very bad and one that disintegrates and so on. Viv, it's been a really good talk.
Hang on, I just wanted...
Oh, okay, go ahead. We haven't finished
wanted to add one thing, that with our ability to worship or love God, okay, as you're saying, then there are many ways in which we can express that. When a mother is seen to a baby, taking many years to nurture that child, she's worshipping God. She's helping that process that God has set in play to bring forward another human being and so on. If we can do work in the spirit of service, that's worship of God. It depends how we translate the word to know God and worship God. It depends on how. We're not talking about just sitting down in a religious building somewhere and praying all the time until we're bored to death, and just reading holy scriptures all the time and not being a benefit to use that love that we have for God in a way which He would want for everything that He's created. So we have to learn to use the power of love in that way. So it's involved in everything that we do. If I make a little bit of a note paper that's going to be of value by giving some information to somebody else, that's worship. That's worshiping God. The people who are collecting all the rubbish and taking it away from our doorsteps are worshiping God. The nurses in hospital are worshiping God. The fathers in the factories, the men in the mines, the sailors at sea, they're worshiping God. Everybody is worshiping God if it is working towards the will of God. But they're not worshiping God if they're doing things like, for instance, involving themselves in work which is harmful to the human race. And
like creating bombs and producing cigarettes or
they're just making death machines all the time.
Death machines. And I think that process of community building is such an essential part of, as you said, not just sitting down or going to church or going to a synagogue or mosque and just sitting there and praying and then going back. And then, it's about that process of community building, of how do we raise our communities to be better than what it is? How do we move away from this individualistic way of thinking and think about how can we move as a society together, as a community, which is such an integral and important thing, especially for humans, because human beings are not meant to live alone and just dwindle away, and we can see that in terms of the epidemic of bad mental health, especially within young people and social media. But friends, we've come to the end there. It's been a very fruitful conversation with Viv Bartlett, and the next one is part 4, and that will be our last talk, our last podcast on this topic of Viv's book, Navigating Materialistic Minefields. And friends, once again, if you want to read Viv's book, head over to Amazon and buy yourself a copy, or George Ronald's. And if you like this podcast, then please subscribe, please like, please share, and try to create these topics as well, and create these talks within your friends. Our suggestion is to have meaningful conversations with your friends and colleagues and family members so that we can raise ourselves above the materialistic world that we live in. So yes, we will see you in part 4, and have a great day. Goodbye.